The great hall of the alien palace stood in silence, dust floating in the broken light. Once it was filled with music, banners, and loyal voices. But now it was empty. The throne in the center was no longer a seat of power. It was a place of shame. On that throne sat the queen, her body fragile, her legs useless. She was once a ruler, feared and admired, but after the war she was left broken. Her people whispered that a queen who could not walk was no queen at all. The nobles turned, their faces away. The soldiers avoided her eyes. Even the servants left her food at the edge of the room, afraid to step closer. To them, she was not a leader anymore. She was a burden. Her crown tilted on her head as she tried to lift her hand. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Help me," but no one came. Her words died in the vast cold hall. She remembered the day of battle, the fire raining from the sky, the enemy's weapons striking her carriage. When she woke, her legs no longer moved. The royal healers tried. But after weeks, they declared her hopeless. Her spine is shattered, they said. She will never rise again. From that moment, she was abandoned. Days turned into nights, and the queen sat, staring at her own useless body. Once she carried the pride of a world. Now she could not even carry herself to bed. Her tears stained the armrest of the throne, yet no one wiped them away. Then came the day the human entered. He was not a soldier, not a noble, not even a guest. He was a medic, a traveler who carried nothing but a worn bag of tools. His uniform was plain, his boots covered in dust. He walked slowly across the cracked floor. The echoes of his steps filled the hollow palace. The guards laughed at him. What can a human do when even our healers have failed? They mocked, but he did not answer them, his eyes fixed on the queen. He saw not a burden, not a curse, but a woman abandoned when she needed help the most. The queen looked at him with tired eyes, expecting him to turn away like the others. Instead, he knelt beside the throne, his voice calm. "Do you want to live again?" he asked. Her lips trembled, her voice weak. "Everyone says it is impossible," she whispered. "Everyone says I am finished." The human medic opened his bag. Inside were simple things: bandages, herbs, small devices of metal and light. "I am not everyone," he said. "I do not promise miracles, but I will not leave you here to rot." For the first time in months, the queen felt a spark of warmth. Small, fragile, but real. Someone had heard her. Someone had not walked away. The nobles watching from the shadows frowned. They whispered, "If she stands again, our power is at risk." Hatred filled their hearts. Already they began to plan against the human. But in that moment the hall was silent. The queen's hand reached for his, her fingers cold and trembling. "Why?" she asked. "Why would a stranger care for me, when even my own people will not?" The human looked into her eyes, and his words were simple. "Because you are alive, and life deserves to be saved." The queen closed her eyes, tears falling down her cheeks. She had begged for mercy for so long, and finally someone had answered. The throne was no longer abandoned. The story of the queen and the human had begun, and unseen in the shadows, danger was already waiting to strike. The queen's weak hand still rested in the human medic's palm. Her voice trembled as she whispered again, "Help me." But the hall remained cold and empty. The guards by the door only shook their heads. To them, her plea was nothing but wind. For many moons, she had cried out for aid. Her people once knelt before her, swearing loyalty. But when her body broke, so did their oaths. Now her words were like ashes in the wind, ignored by all. The human medic did not turn away. He leaned closer so only she could hear. "I heard you," he said. "I will not pretend. I did not." His tone was steady, but his eyes showed the weight of what he had chosen. The queen blinked as if she did not believe him. So many promises had been made and broken. Her people once said they would fight for her, but when the battle was lost, they left her behind like a broken statue. "Why risk yourself?" she whispered, her throat dry. "They will laugh at you. They may punish you for touching me." Her words shook, filled with both fear and hope. The medic gave a faint smile. "I am not here for them. I am here for you." Across the hall, a group of nobles whispered among themselves. their robes rich, their voices sharp with pride. One of them muttered, "He is a fool, does he not see she is useless?" Another sneered, "Let him waste his hands on a corpse that breathes." Their laughter echoed through the chamber. But the medic did not rise. He stayed kneeling, opening his bag, showing the queen the worn tools of his trade. "I do not know how much I can restore," he admitted. "But I will not abandon you." The queen's eyes glistened, a memory stirring. Within her, once she had stood before her people strong, her throne raised high her word law. Now she could not even raise herself without help. And yet this stranger knelt, not for power, not for gold, but for her. Her voice cracked again, but this time it carried more than despair. "Then, try," she whispered. "Even if it is hopeless, try." The medic nodded once, firm as stone. He pulled out a cloth and carefully placed it under her fragile legs. His fingers moved with care, pressing, testing, his face deep in thought. From the shadows, an old servant watched with wide eyes. She had seen many come and go. She had seen healers declare the queen worthless. She had seen priests call her cursed. But now she whispered to herself, "This human listens, when none of us would." The nobles, however, grew restless, their whispers turning sharp. "If he stirs hope in her, the people may rally once more," one said. "We cannot allow it," said another, already thinking of ways to silence the medic before hope spread like fire. The queen, unaware of the whispers, watched the human's hands move. His touch was gentle yet firm. His eyes did not carry pity but focus. "You treat me as if I matter," she whispered, surprised by her own tears. "You do matter," he answered simply. "No one deserves to die unheard." In that moment the queen realized how heavy silence had been, how much it hurt to be invisible, forgotten, left to rot while the world moved on. This human had broken that silence. His voice was small, but to her it was thunder. Her plea had finally been answered. But danger already lurked behind the walls, nobles sharpening knives in secret, waiting for the chance to strike down both the queen and the foolish human who dared to hear her. The night grew colder, yet for the first time in endless days, the queen felt warmth within her chest. A fragile hope had been lit. One voice had heard her, when the galaxy had not, and she would not forget it. The human medic sat in the dim light of the broken palace hall, his old bag resting open on the cold floor. Inside were herbs, cloth strips, small bottles of strange liquid, and a few odd metal tools. To others these things looked worthless, but to him they were hope. The queen's eyes followed his hands as he sorted through the items. Her lips parted, weak and uncertain. "Even the healers of my people gave up," she whispered. "What makes you different?" The medic paused. Lifting a thin silver tool, he turned it in his hand slowly. "They saw a throne," he said. "I see a woman who deserves a chance." His voice carried no pride, only quiet truth. Around them the guards muttered, shaking their heads. One spat on the ground. "He wastes his time," another laughed. "Humans are soft, he will only break himself." But the medic ignored them. His choice had already been made. He touched the queen's leg gently, pressing along the muscles that had not moved for months. She winced at the pressure, but she did not ask him to stop. Instead, her hands gripped the armrest of her throne, holding on to the faint sting of feeling. "Pain," the medic said softly, "is a sign. It means your body still remembers." Her eyes widened slightly. Could her body truly remember? Could there be a chance her broken form was not the end? The nobles in the shadows leaned closer, watching, their faces dark with anger. "He cannot be allowed to succeed," one hissed. "If she rises again, our power crumbles." Another nodded. "Then let him heal, and when hope is born, we will crush it in front of her." The queen's breathing grew heavier. She wanted to believe him, but fear chained her heart. "If you fail," she said, voice shaking, "I will fall deeper into despair." The medic looked at her, his eyes steady. "Then I must not fail." He worked with steady care, rubbing herbs into her skin, massaging her stiff muscles, using strange human tools to test her nerves. The hours passed, the hall grew darker, but he did not rest. At last he leaned back, sweat on his brow, his hands trembling from effort. It will take time, he admitted. Days, maybe weeks, but every day we will fight for your body, step by step. The Queen lowered her gaze, tears shining in her eyes. No one had spoken such words to her since before the war. She whispered, "Why do you care for me? You are not of my blood, not of my people." The medic's answer was simple. "Because I am human, and humans do not turn from those who suffer." Her heart stirred, something she had thought long dead. Respect, trust, perhaps even hope. She looked at him and saw not a servant, not a fool, but a man who had made a choice when no one else dared. The guards grew silent, watching the strange sight unfold. The Queen, once abandoned, now leaning toward a stranger for strength. Outside the palace, rumors began to spread. Whispers in the market said a human medic tended the broken Queen. Some laughed, others grew curious, and some began to wonder if the Queen's time was not yet finished. But the nobles fumed in secret, already sending word to their assassins. Their plan clear. If hope dared to rise, they would cut it down with steel. As night fell, the medic gathered his tools back into the bag. He bowed his head slightly to the Queen. "Rest," he said. "Tomorrow we begin again." The Queen's voice was soft, but filled with something new. "Thank you," she whispered, her words fragile yet real. The medic turned to leave, but as he stepped away, the Queen's hand reached out, weak but determined. "Do not abandon me," she said, fear trembling behind her tone. He placed his hand over hers, firm and warm. "I chose to stay," he said, "and I will not go." Unseen behind the cracked pillars, a figure watched with cold eyes, the blade, hidden under his cloak, glinting faintly. The noble's first shadow had already been sent. The medic's choice had given life to hope, and now danger crept silently closer. The palace grew darker as the moons rose above the alien city. Torches flickered in the great hall, their light dancing on the broken walls. The Queen slept lightly. Upon her throne, her body weak but her heart no longer empty. Beside her chair lay the human medic's worn bag, a silent reminder that someone had chosen to stay. But in the shadows of the palace, whispers stirred. Nobles in fine robes gathered in a secret chamber, their voices sharp, their eyes burning with anger. "The human must be stopped," one hissed. "He fills her with false hope." Another snarled, "If she stands again, our power is gone." The eldest noble, a man with a face like carved stone, slammed his hand on the table. "We let her rot so the people would forget her. Now this outsider dares to wake old loyalty. If she rises, the throne will not be ours." His voice was low but heavy, and the others nodded grimly. A plan was formed, not of open war, but of knives. In the dark, they would send assassins, shadows that killed before morning light. No one would blame them. The palace was already broken. Death came easy in times like these. Meanwhile, in the hall, the medic worked quietly. He pressed the Queen's muscles, rubbed herbs into her skin, whispered encouragement as her body trembled. Each small twitch was a victory. Each flicker of pain was a sign that life had not left her completely. The Queen whispered, her voice soft as a breath. "They do not want me healed." Her eyes moved to the high arches above them, as if she felt the hidden eyes of her enemies. "You risk much." The medic looked at her firmly. "I knew the risk when I knelt. Shadows do not frighten me." Yet even as he spoke, one of those shadows moved closer. A figure cloaked in black slipped through the ruined corridors, a dagger gleaming faintly in his hand. His orders clear: silence the human before hope grew too strong. The old servant who lingered in the hall noticed something strange. A shape. At the edge of the torchlight, her eyes widened, her heart pounding. She dared not cry out, but she clutched her chest, whispering a prayer. The Queen's breathing slowed as she tried to rest, but her mind would not calm. She feared what tomorrow might bring. She feared not for herself, but for the one who had chosen to stand at her side. The medic, sensing her unease, leaned closer. "Do not fear. Every wound can heal if the heart has strength," he said. But even as his words gave comfort, his ears caught a faint scrape of steel on stone. He turned his head slowly, his gaze meeting the flicker of movement in the corner. The assassin froze, hidden in shadow, his dagger ready. The medic's hand moved calmly, reaching for the small lantern beside his bag. With a flick, he lifted it high, light spilling into the corners of the hall. The queen gasped softly, her eyes catching the glint of the blade. "Behind you," she whispered. The assassin leapt forward, a blur of black. The dagger aimed straight for the human's back, but the medic twisted aside, the blade cutting only air. He swung the lantern hard, fire spilling sparks as it struck the assassin's arm. The man hissed in pain, stumbling back into the dark. Guards rushed forward, but too late. The assassin had already vanished into the cracks of the ruined palace, leaving only smoke and silence. The queen's hands shook, her voice filled with fear. "They will not stop. They will come again. They want me gone. They want you dead." The medic knelt before her once more, his voice steady though his heart raced. "Then let them come," he said. "I did not choose this path to turn back now." From the shadows above, unseen eyes watched with rage. The nobles would not stop. Their first attempt had failed, but more blades waited, more traps were being prepared. The queen closed her eyes, torn between fear and hope. In her chest, two truths battled. Her enemies wanted her destroyed, yet one man had chosen to fight for her. And in the silence of that hall, one thing became clear. The war for her life had only just begun. The palace was quiet again. The attempt on the medic's life left behind only fear and whispers. The guards pretended not to see. The nobles pretended nothing happened. But both the queen and the human knew the truth. Enemies moved in the shadows. Still, the medic did not stop. When the torches burned low and the hall was empty, he stayed, his bag open on the stone floor, his hands steady as he worked on the queen's broken body. "Why do you come at night?" the queen asked softly, her voice weak, yet curious. "You could leave. No one would blame you." The medic looked at her with calm eyes. "Because the night hides us," he said. "When they sleep, I can heal you in secret. No one can steal this work from us." She lowered her gaze, her heart heavy. "Even hope has become a crime," she whispered. His hands pressed along her legs, firm but careful. He used strange human tools that hummed with a faint light. He rubbed herbs into her skin, herbs with sharp scents that made her nerves stir. Sometimes she gasped at the sudden sting. Sometimes she clenched her fists until her nails dug deep into her palms. But she never asked him to stop. "You endure well," he said gently. "Pain means your body remembers." Her eyes widened slightly. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to think her body still held a memory of life. But doubt clung to her, like chains. "What if nothing changes?" she whispered. "What if I am forever broken?" The medic paused, meeting her eyes. "Then we will still try, because the fight itself is life." His words struck something deep inside her. For so long she had been surrounded by silence, by people who turned away. Now every night his voice reminded her she was still worth saving. Days passed, nights deepened. Their secret healing continued. Each time he came, the queen felt a spark of something she had thought lost. One night, as his hands pressed along her legs, she suddenly gasped, her eyes wide. "I felt it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "A spark, a touch inside me." The medic's eyes lit up. He leaned closer. "Where?" he asked quickly. "Show me where." She pointed weakly to her toes, her lips shaking. "There." It moved like a shadow of life. He pressed again, slower this time, and her toes twitched, the smallest of movements. But to them it was thunder. The queen's hands covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought I was dead," she whispered. "But I am not. I am not." The medic gave a rare smile, his voice strong. "This is only the beginning." But outside the hall, unseen, the old servant who had once whispered prayers now watched with wide eyes. She ran into the night, whispering to others, "The queen lives, the queen heals." And soon the rumor spread through the streets like fire. In the market some laughed, others whispered with awe, some prayed. But the nobles who heard grew cold with fear. If hope returned to the queen, their power would fall. So they sharpened their knives, they whispered to their spies, "If she walks, she must never leave this palace alive." Back in the hall, the queen leaned against her throne. exhaustion heavy on her, but her heart beat faster. She looked at the human medic, and her voice was soft but full of new light. "You gave me back more than feeling, you gave me back hope." The medic placed his hand over hers, steady and firm. "We will not stop here," he said. "One twitch becomes a step, one step becomes a life. We will win this battle." But even as his words filled the hall with warmth, the shadows around them thickened. Enemies plotted, blades waited. The Queen's healing was no longer only a secret between her and the human. It had become a threat to the whole empire. Morning broke across the alien city, but the palace felt colder than night. The rumor had spread too fast. Whispers in the markets, voices in the alleys. "The Queen is alive," they said. "A human heals her." Some spoke in hope, others in scorn, but all eyes turned toward the abandoned throne once more. The nobles gathered in secret chambers, their faces pale with anger. "This cannot continue," one growled. "If she rises, the people will follow her again." Another hissed. "We built our power on her silence. If she speaks, we are undone." So they sent warnings, quiet and sharp. Guards approached the human medic in the corridors, their spears blocking his way. "Leave her," they told him coldly. "You do not belong here." But the medic did not move. He stared at them with steady eyes. "She still breathes, so I will not leave." Their hands tightened on their spears, yet something in his calm voice made them hesitate. When he returned to the hall, the Queen's eyes searched his face. She saw the strain he tried to hide. "They threatened you," she whispered, her voice heavy with guilt. "Because of me." He shook his head firmly. "Because of mercy," he answered. "Some hearts hate what they cannot control." Her chest ached. She had once commanded armies, now she brought only danger to the one man who dared to stay. "You risk too much," she said softly. "They may kill you for me." The medic placed his hand over hers. "If mercy carries a price, I will pay it." That night he continued his work, massaging her stiff legs, pressing nerves, making sparks of life stir again. Each twitch grew, stronger, but with each sign of progress, the danger grew heavier. Outside the palace walls, a crowd gathered, some with candles, some with stones. "Let her heal," voices cried. "Our queen deserves her throne." But others shouted, "She is cursed. Let her die." The noise grew into chaos, two sides clashing in the streets. From her high window, the queen heard the roar of voices. Her hands trembled. "I am tearing my people apart," she whispered, "all because I dared to live." The medic looked at her firmly. "No," he said, "they are not divided because of you. They are divided because they forgot compassion. Your healing reminds them of what they lost." Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to believe him, yet fear gnawed at her. "And if they decide to kill me to keep their peace," she whispered, "what then?" The medic's answer was steady, his voice like iron. "Then they will face me first." His words struck her heart, stronger than any oath she had ever heard. He was not bound by law, not bound by blood, yet he chose to stand where even her own kin had walked away. But beyond the palace gates, plans of blood were already forming. Nobles bribed assassins, guards whispered of secret orders. The queen was no longer just a broken ruler. She was a threat to the power they held, and the human medic was the shield they had to shatter. As the torches burned low, the queen closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her down. But her heart whispered a truth she could not ignore. This man had given her more than healing. He had given her courage to dream again. She whispered in the darkness, half asleep, half praying, "Do not leave me." The medic sat beside her, his hand resting on the worn armrest of her throne, his eyes watching the shadows. "I will not," he murmured. And in that silence, as enemies sharpened their blades, outside, both knew the price of mercy was rising higher with every heartbeat. The palace felt heavy with silence, but inside the great hall a strange energy stirred. The queen sat upright on her throne, her pale hands gripping the armrests, her eyes fixed on the human medic kneeling at her side. His tools spread across the floor. For nights he had pressed her muscles, worked her nerves, whispered words of strength, and now something inside her body was waking. Her toes twitched more often. Her legs felt sparks of pain that once were nothing but stone. The medic studied her carefully, his voice calm. "It is time," he said. "Time to try what you thought impossible." Her breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding. "You mean to stand?" He nodded, his eyes steady. "Not alone, not yet, but with me." Fear rushed into her chest. For so long she had been chained to the throne, mocked as broken, cursed, abandoned. What if she fell? What if she failed? The nobles would laugh, the guards would sneer. But the medic's voice cut through her fear. "One step is enough. One step can change everything." She closed her eyes, trembling, her hands clenched tight. Then slowly she placed them in his grip strong and certain. Together they shifted her weight forward. The hall was silent. The guards who once mocked her now watched with wide eyes. The nobles who plotted against her leaned in from the shadows, waiting for her shame. The queen gasped as her feet touched the cold stone. Her legs shook. Her whole body trembled. She thought she would fall, but the medic whispered, "Lean on me. Trust me." And then, her knees bent. Her body rose, slowly, painfully, but it rose. A cry escaped her lips, a sound not of pain, but of victory. She was standing, weak and shaking, leaning on the human, but standing. The hall erupted. Some gasped in awe. Others whispered in fear. One guard dropped his spear in shock. "The queen lives," he whispered, his voice trembling. Tears streamed down her face, her eyes wide as she looked at her trembling legs. I am not broken," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I still live." The medic's face softened, his words steady. "Yes, and tomorrow you will live stronger." But in the shadows, danger moved. The nobles' assassins, hidden and waiting, saw the moment they feared most. The queen standing again, hope sparking like fire across the hall. They could not allow it. A door slammed open. Figures in black rushed forward, daggers flashing in the torchlight. The crowd screamed. Chaos filled the hall. The queen staggered, almost falling, but the medic held her close, shielding her with his own body, his eyes sharp as steel. The assassins charged. The guards hesitated, some loyal, some corrupted. No one moved fast enough. The medic reached for his bag, pulling out a vial of smoke. He smashed it on the ground. A cloud of choking haze filled the air. Coughs and shouts echoed through the chamber. Blades clashed. In the blur, the queen clung to him, her legs weak, her voice desperate. "They will kill you." He leaned close, his voice calm even in the storm. "Then they will have to kill me standing." The assassins slashed through the smoke, but the medic fought with wit, not steel. He used fire from the lanterns, throwing burning oil to block their path. He swung broken wood like a weapon, his every move meant to protect her. The queen's heart pounded. Never had she seen such defiance. A single human standing against the knives of an empire. At last the smoke cleared. The assassins retreated into the night. Their mission failed. The nobles' fury would only grow. But the hall was not silent. Voices rose from the crowd, louder than whispers, stronger than fear. "The queen walks," they cried. "The queen rises." The queen stood shaking, leaning on the medic, but her voice carried across the hall like thunder. "Yes, I rise, and with him I will rise again." The nobles watched in horror, their power slipping like sand. The people's eyes turned back to the throne, and to the man who dared to stand. Beside her, hope had returned, but it came with blood and blades, and both the queen and the medic knew their battle was only beginning. The night was heavy with silence. The ruined palace stood like a skeleton, its walls cracked, its pillars broken. Inside, in the queen's chamber, the human medic worked quietly, arranging herbs and cloth beside her bed. The queen rested, her face pale but calm, her trust in him unshaken. Then, the doors burst open, shadows spilled into the hall. Assassins, masked and armed, moved like wolves in the dark. Their blades gleamed, catching the little light from the burning torches. They had come to finish the queen before her healing could bring hope again. The medic froze. His heart pounded. He was no soldier. He had no sword, no armor, only his healer's bag, filled with bandages, herbs, and bottles of strange powders. But behind him, the queen lay helpless. If he ran, she would die. If he stayed, he might die with her. His hands trembled, but he stood his ground. The assassins laughed when they saw him. "A human medic?" one sneered. "Move aside. You cannot protect her." The medic swallowed hard. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." They advanced, confident, blades raised. The medic acted quickly. He grabbed a small flask from his bag and threw it at the ground. Smoke exploded across the room, thick and choking. The assassins coughed, their eyes burning. The medic darted forward, snatching a burning torch from the wall. He waved the fire, wildly, forcing the attackers back. Sparks flew across the chamber and shadows danced along the broken walls. The queen gasped softly as she watched him, this frail human, fighting with nothing but smoke and fire. One assassin lunged. The medic swung the torch, striking the man's mask and setting his hood aflame. The attacker screamed, rolling on the ground. Another assassin charged, but the medic threw a handful of sharp herbs into his face. The man stumbled, blinded, clawing at his burning eyes. The medic's chest heaved. Sweat poured down his face. He had never fought before, never raised his hand to harm another. But tonight he fought not to kill. He fought to protect. The queen's eyes widened. She saw his courage, saw how he risked everything for her dignity. For the first time in years, she felt her heart beat with something other than fear or despair. But there were too many. More assassins pushed through the smoke, their blades glinting in the torchlight. They spread out, circling him. His tricks were running out. His hands shook as he gripped the torch tighter, his only weapon. The queen whispered, her voice trembling, "You must run. They will kill you." The medic shook his head. "I promised you. I don't break promises." A dagger slashed past his arm, cutting the sleeve of his tunic. Another blow struck his shoulder, making him stumble. Pain shot through him, but he refused to fall. He kicked over a table, sending jars crashing, oil spilling across the floor. With one swift motion, he dropped the torch. Flames roared to life, spreading fast. The assassins cursed, leaping back as fire swallowed the chamber. Smoke and fire wrapped around the medic and the queen like a shield. For a moment, it seemed he had turned the tide. But then, reinforcements arrived. Through the shattered doors, more assassins stormed in. Dozens, maybe more. Their armor gleamed, their blades sharp, their faces cold with hate. The medic's chest tightened. He could not fight them all. He stood in front of the queen, torch in one hand, bandages in the other. His knees shook, but his eyes were steady. The queen, watching him stand against impossible odds, felt something ignite within her, an old strength, a buried fire. The assassins closed in. The medic whispered, almost to himself, "If this is where I fall, at least I fall standing." The flames flickered. The hall trembled with the sound of marching feet, and then the doors shook again, as yet another force entered the chamber. Reinforcements, too many for one man to face. The queen gasped, clutching his arm. The medic lifted his chin. He was ready. The chamber burned with firelight. Smoke curled across the cracked ceiling, painting the air with shadows. The human medic stood like a lone wall before the bed, his body shaking from pain and exhaustion. The assassins pressed forward, dozens of them, their blades eager to spill blood. The queen's hand gripped the sheets, her body still weak, her legs trembling, but her eyes blazed like the sun. She watched the medic, this fragile human, refusing to kneel, refusing to run. He had shielded her with nothing but smoke, fire, and his will. Her chest rose and fell. Something long buried stirred inside her. For too long, she had been silent. For too long, she had been called cursed, abandoned, useless. Tonight, watching him, she remembered who she was. Not a broken woman, not a forgotten queen. She was power. She was fire. The assassins laughed at the medic's weakness. "Your tricks are finished, human," one sneered. "Step aside and we might let you live." The medic spat blood but said nothing. His stance did not break. The Queen's fingers curled into a fist. She felt a spark in her chest, a strength returning. Slowly she pushed herself up, her hands trembling against the bed frame. The medic turned, startled. "My lady, stay down." "No," she whispered. Her voice was rough, weak, but it carried. The assassins froze. The chamber seemed to still, the firelight pausing in the smoke. The Queen pulled herself higher, her back straightening, her head lifting. The hall that had once mocked her now listened. Her voice rose again, stronger this time. "Enough." It echoed through the chamber, not loud but filled with command. The assassins shifted uneasily. Their eyes darted between her and the medic. The Queen's feet touched the cold stone floor. The medic moved to steady her, but she lifted a hand, signaling him to wait. Her legs trembled like fragile branches, but still she stood. One step, then another. Gasps broke from the shadows. Words spread like fire. "The Queen walks." The assassins faltered. Their blades lowered slightly, doubt creeping into their eyes. She raised her chin, her voice now ringing with power. "You call me cursed. You call me broken. But look at me now. I rise. I live again." The medic stared at her in awe. His heart thudded. He had seen life return to her body, one twitch at a time. But now he saw something greater, her spirit rising like a storm. The Queen turned, her voice sharper, her eyes fixed on her enemies. "And for this human," she pointed to the medic, her hand steady, "I live again. Not for your mercy, not for your scorn, but for his courage." The chamber erupted with noise. Some nobles fell to their knees. Others shouted in protest. The assassins hesitated, their blades trembling. They had come to kill a helpless woman, but now she stood tall, her presence commanding, her words cutting through them like steel. The medic, though weak and bleeding, felt warmth flood his chest. Her words were not only for the hall, they were for him. The Queen stepped closer, standing. Beside him, her hand brushing against his arm for balance. She faced the assassins, her voice like thunder. "Strike him, and you strike your Queen. Strike me, and you strike your people's future. Choose wisely." Silence fell. The assassins looked at each other, their courage crumbling. The hall seemed smaller now, as if her presence filled every crack and corner. The medic's breathing slowed. Relief mixed with awe. He had stood to protect her. But now, she stood to protect him. And yet, beneath the silence, danger still lurked. Some nobles whispered in the smoke, their eyes sharp with hate. They would not give up so easily. But tonight the Queen's voice had returned, and it had shaken the empire. The fire in the chamber slowly died, leaving the hall glowing with red embers. Smoke drifted upward, curling like ghosts into the broken ceiling. The assassins had fallen back, silent, their courage broken by the Queen's voice. Now the hall was full of whispers. Nobles pressed against the ruined walls, their jeweled clothes shimmering in the fading light. Some bowed low, unwilling but forced. Others clenched their fists, anger burning in their eyes. They had no choice. The Queen lived, and they could not deny it. The medic stood at her side, his tunic torn, his shoulder bleeding, his face pale. He swayed with exhaustion, but still he stood as if the Queen's strength now held him upright. The Queen looked at the crowd. Her eyes were sharp, her voice steady. "You mocked me. You left me to rot. You called me cursed." Her words struck like arrows, and many nobles lowered their heads. "But this human," she continued, pointing to the medic, "did what none of you dared. He touched wounds even your royal healers feared. He gave when you gave nothing. He risked death so I might rise." The hall grew still. No one dared speak. The Queen turned to the medic. For a moment the hall disappeared. Only the two of them remained, the broken Queen and the fragile human who refused to abandon her. She stepped closer. Her eyes softened, her voice lowering, yet it carried to every corner. What reward shall I give you? Gold, jewels, a title? The medic shook his head weakly. His voice cracked. I want nothing. I only did what was right. The Queen studied him, silent for a long time. Then a faint smile touched her lips. No treasure, no crown. Then I will give you something greater. The nobles shifted uneasily, sensing something was coming. The Queen lifted her chin, her voice rising again, filled with strength. I give you my protection. My throne will guard you. My power will shield you. No blade shall touch you while I breathe. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some nobles gasped, others growled in anger. To offer the protection of the throne to a human, an outsider, was unthinkable. But the Queen was not done. She stepped closer still, so close the medic could feel the warmth of her breath. Her hand, cold but steady, reached for his. She laced her fingers through his, and her voice softened again, though every ear strained to hear it. And more than my throne, I give you my trust, the trust I once gave to none. Where all refused me, you stayed. Where all hated me, you cared. For that I cannot repay you with riches. I repay you with myself. The hall exploded in noise, shouts of disbelief, cries of outrage. Some nobles fell silent in shock. The medic's eyes widened, his heart racing. He had come to heal, not to be bound to a queen. The Queen ignored the chaos. She looked only at him. Her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with emotion. You gave me life again, and in return, I give you more than gold. I give you me. The medic's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to deny, to say he was not worthy. But words would not come. He saw the truth in her eyes. Fierce, unshakable truth. The hall fell into uneasy silence once more. Nobles bowed grudgingly, forced to accept what they could not change. The Queen lived. The Queen had chosen, but none had expected what she would choose. Her reward was not treasure, not titles, not land. Her reward was her heart, and it belonged to the human medic. The ruined palace was silent. The flames had burned low, leaving only glowing embers and smoke. Shadows stretched across the cracked marble floor. The nobles stood frozen, their jeweled cloaks heavy, their eyes sharp with anger, shock, or fear. In the center of it all stood the Queen, once broken, once mocked, now standing tall. Her hand was wrapped around the medic's, holding him steady as much as he held her. Together they faced the hall. The nobles muttered in hushed voices. A human cannot stand beside a queen. This is madness. She shames the throne. The Queen raised her hand for silence. At once the whispers died. Her voice, clear and firm, carried through the chamber. When my own blood abandoned me, when you all called me cursed, this man came. Not with swords, not with riches, but with mercy. She looked down at the medic, her eyes filled with something soft and unshakable. Her voice lowered, but it echoed, louder than any shout. Where all refused, only you stood by me. The medic's throat tightened. He tried to speak, but she pressed her hand gently against his, silencing him. She turned back to the crowd. Her voice grew sharp, each word striking, like a blade. You call him unworthy because he is human, but I say he is the worthiest of all. He risked his life for mine when you sought only my death. He gave me dignity when you gave me shame. He gave me life when you gave me nothing. Gasps spread across the nobles. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others clenched their fists in fury, but none could interrupt her. The Queen's voice held them all captive. The Queen took a breath. Her grip on the medic's hand tightened. Her eyes shone with fire and tears alike. Tonight, before you all, I make my choice. He is not my servant. He is not my tool. He is not my subject. The medic's eyes widened. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. The Queen stepped closer to him, her voice trembling, not with fear, but with deep emotion. He is my chosen companion, my equal, my strength, the one I will stand beside. not as queen and healer, but as woman and man. The hall erupted. Cries of outrage, roars of disbelief, even laughter filled the chamber. A queen cannot choose a human. This is betrayal. She insults the throne, but the queen stood unshaken, her voice thundered above the chaos. You say I insult the throne? No. I honor it. For a throne means nothing without loyalty, and he gave it freely. A crown means nothing without love for its people, and he showed me love when none of you would. The nobles trembled, caught between fury and fear. The medic felt dizzy. His hands shook. He had come only to heal, never dreaming of this moment. He looked at her, his lips parting, but no words came. The queen leaned closer so only he could hear her whisper. You saved my life. But more than that, you gave me back my world. Now, I give you mine. Her words burned into him, deep and unforgettable. Slowly, she raised their joined hands high for all to see. The hall fell silent again. Even the most furious noble could not break the weight of that moment. The queen had chosen, and in her choice, the empire itself shifted. The medic had healed her body. But she had given him something greater than gratitude. She had given him her world.